Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for a new mini series with me, Andrew Musgrove.
And me, Sam Mulliner.
Yes, every week you'll be hearing from me and Sam, a brand new mini series talking about the things that we despise in the beautiful game. It won't always be Newcastle United related, but it will be talking about the things we don't want to see anymore in football in general. And Sam, what are we calling this wonderful new mini series?
We are calling it Get in the Bin.
There we go. The concept, as I explained, very simple. If you've watched a certain BBC program called Room 101, it may or may not be slightly like that, but we are calling it Get in the Bin. And this is episode 1. Sam, I'll let you introduce first the topic you're bringing to the table and that you're wanting to get in the bin.
So, my topic of discussion today is sporting directors, directors of football with zero loyalty to a long term project.
How topical. How
Ring any
topical.
bells?
I wonder who could have provoked this angry reaction. Is it a Mr. Dan Ashworth? I'm sure you'll answer that in a moment. Let me introduce to you the topic that I would like to see get in the bin. Is the FA Cup moving from free-to-air TV to subscription? That's really got my goat, and I'll explain the kind of the reasoning behind that in a moment. But I'm going to open the table, the floor up to you first, Sam. Come on, then. Why are you angry? Why do you want the topic of loyalty from sporting directors to get in the bin?
Well, it's just made me think of days gone by, and like you look at 20 years ago, and there's a lot around Newcastle United from like 20 years ago since the Champions League, and Sir Bobby, it was his heavenly birthday yesterday, of course, or the day before, beg your pardon. Um, and it was just casting my mind back to how football looked then. And whilst these new directors of football and sporting directors are almost seem like the next big thing, the next kind of football celebrities, like the ones that you had 20 years ago would be like ever present in their team. You had Peter Kenyon at Man United for years and years and years and years, and then that big story was when he did actually move to Chelsea. That was the kind of first big one when Abramovich took over. But obviously, then they had David Gill for a number of years. Arsenal with David Dean, and these were ever present. So Bobby had Gordon Mill. What that role actually entailed compared to it does nowadays is probably a lot more diluted than what it is now. But I think it's just a shame that we sign on these kind of football genii and they abandon you 18 months into a long-term project. It's highly irritating. I actually saw Dan Ashworth in person. He was 5 yards away from me on Friday after I just finished the stadium tour. He was on the phone getting into a taxi. Yeah, I could have shouted abuse at him, but instead I kind of just looked at him and shook my head like a disappointed grandmother to a kid that's eaten too many sweets. I don't know, but that's all I could fathom at the time. But yeah, it's really. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to come back and pick up on a few points in a moment, but I'll introduce the reasons why I'm a little bit angry and about the FA Cup move from free to air TV to subscription. Everyone will be aware that last week it was announced that TNT Sports, formerly BT Sports, have won the rights to broadcast the FA Cup from 2025-26. Now, they have promised, Sam, that this ensures the world's longest running national knockout football competition continues to be as broadly available as possible across the UK, which I find an absolute laughable concept, because how much is a subscription to TNT Sports a month? Is it what, 18, 25, 30 quid
Yeah,
if you're lucky? And they're
yeah.
claiming that this is going to help ensure it's going to be free to wear. Well, why not just leave it where it was? And I know we all pay a TV license, or some of us will anyway. In ITV,
Not
you've got
really
the
the
ad.
same though, is it?
No, it's not. And they're going to be broadcasting selected games. How are they choosing selected games? I mean, you can bet your bottom dollar it's always going to be a so-called top six side that's going to get broadcast, and that's not the beauty of the FA Cup. The FA Cup is on a Friday night watching a non-league side battling against someone in the League 1 or 2 and trying to progress in this wonderful competition. And it does sour it somewhat. A big money deal like this, taking it away from the people. I don't know what you think about it, but I'm a little bit angry, and I would like to see it get in the bin, truth be told.
Yeah, I can see why. I'm not. I mean, the good news is they are going to put some games on free to air, but I don't think it'll be half as many as what BBC and ITV were doing. And obviously, like they didn't have just like the one game on. You could choose on like Red Button and stuff, and there was all other kind of games that were easily accessible. So yeah, I think it was going a long way as well to kind of restoring the kind of interest, the pride in the FA Cup as well, which sometimes get lost when these tournaments go to behind a paywall, essentially. So yeah, I do agree with you, but like the one saving grace they have got is like they've said they're going to have free to air ones, especially the final as well, which they do for the European finals as well, don't they? But yeah, I do agree with you. It has left a bit of a sour taste.
In one hand, it's a bittersweet complaint, because I think TNT do a marvelous job. The presenters, you got Lindsay Hipgrave, the core commentators. I love Ali McCoist. I think they do a tremendous job. The coverage is probably the best coverage out there. It's just the fact that you are now going to see less games available to view. And yes, okay, they are going to put selected games on, but it's not going to be, as you say, nearly enough to kind of feed the hunger and the desire to watch, the FA Cup, especially them early rounds. And it is, you can be flicking through on a Friday or Saturday night and just stumble across it, whether it be the midday kickoff or the late kickoff. You think, oh, that's an interesting little tie, and then you end up going down a Wikipedia hole and you find, oh, that's where that team's based, or that's what league they're in. And it is the beauty, the romanticism of the cup, and that's going to be taken away. Not a big fan of it at all. The statement did say as well, it helps us to provide vital investment at every level of English football, which again is fantastic. But the skeptic in me says, how quickly and how far down are we actually going to see that investment?
Does it mean that if say, I mean, your Maidstone's your prime example for this season, isn't it? Were they to have that, or one of like the lower league, Southern Northern Premier Division teams have a good run in it, will they get more money for being on telly than they would from BBC ITV? Would that be because then I suppose that would be good. They'd still get obviously a gate receipt if they were at home, and they'd still sell out their ground. But if they were to get more money from TNT having their game televised, you could argue that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. That like we bemoan FFFP at Newcastle, but like life's a hell of a lot tougher down that side of the league, where you can only offer players 6 month contracts at £200 a week or whatever. So you could argue it's increasing their revenue, their turnover, but obviously they've got to win the games first, so it's not a given right. It's tricky. You are right with TNT's coverage. They do a good job. Love Lindsay Hipgrave and Ali McCoist, as you say. I think he's probably the nation's favourite co-commentator at the moment. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, but it's just pushing people to kind of, and it's pushing people actually to a wider issue, being people streaming games sort of illegally on dodgy boxes and stuff like that. It's just pushing, and the same with you've opened a can of worms, because now the argument spreads to 3 p.m. kickoffs and that blackout that's just so outdated, and it just drives people further and further away to watching football the kind of correct way.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because reading the kind of the criteria and the deal, the intricacies of the deal, it seems that they're looking to stream every single kickoff in the FA Cup, but the 3 p.m. kickoffs. So how on earth does that blackout also stretch to the FA Cup? I must be missing something somewhere. because it is a ridiculous blackout across the Premier League, and it does also seem that yeah, with every game from the third round outside of the 3 p.m. kickoff on display through to the final. So, what is it about
Well,
3 p.m. kickoffs?
your
That needs
bulk
to get
of
in the bin
your
as well.
yeah, the bulk of your 3 p.m. kickoffs, especially in the third round, which is where you can have these big giant killing upsets. You know, the bulk of the games are 3 p.m. kickoffs. It's fine when you get to the fifth round because it's a midweek round, isn't it? As we prepare to face Blackburn in a week's time or whatever. Yeah, you've opened a can of worms. You really have. Yeah, the 3 p.m. the 3 p.m. blackout, which was temporarily lifted for COVID, and that was great when it was lifted, and it just enhanced the point even further just how outdated that law is in the UK.
Should football be free to air? Is that the argument we're putting forward, or am I putting forward? I'm asking myself the question. I don't think that's the argument I'm putting forward. I think the FA Cup should be free to air. I can understand the need
Yeah,
for Sky Sports and TNT to have the packages for Premier League games. But, I think the answer probably lies in, especially when you talk about the Premier League, the Premier League launching a streaming service. And
yeah.
then that's when the 3 p.m. kickoffs can be broadcast. It would have been really interesting to see what would have happened had Eddie Hearn's TV company got hold of the rights that
It's not
didn't. I
his
mean,
company. It's that he's an employee, I suppose.
he's the employee. Well, there you go. Well, it'd be interesting what happened there if they had managed to get some sort of deal. We've seen Amazon also probably bring the best Premier League coverage out there alongside TNT, would we say?
Yeah. Do you know what? A really good diverse mix of. I mean, they kind of had their pick of whoever because you had everyone. You had the guys off Match of the Day doing comms like Guy Mowbray and people like that, and you had a good mix of presenters, pundits. Shearer, obviously, great as a pundit, very underrated as a co-commentator as well. Yeah, Amazon's coverage was good. I'm surprised they didn't go in for a renewal of their package, and I was very shocked to see DAZN, as you say, not go in for it. But I think time will tell with that. They're not going anywhere anytime soon, and I think it's a matter of time before we do and see some kind of streaming platform for the Premier League. And maybe even the Championship as well. You know, the Championship's got a great stream of revenue in comparison to other leagues across Europe. But look, Sky do a great job as well. Very much a transitional phase for them, isn't it? With your big hitters leaving, your Shreveses, your Stellings, your Tylers. But yeah, obviously prolonged. They've been the best over a prolonged period of time, haven't they? But it's one of them. Like you say, it's a matter of time before you probably will get some kind of streaming service. But even then, if you go back to all the games being at 3:00, you're only watching one.
That's true. That is true. We'll get back to then the FA Cup and the new deal for TV coverage. Let's get on to your topic then. As you explained right at the start, it was about the loyalty of sporting directors and those on that level as well. Come at me then again with your reasoning and just try and persuade me that that's the topic that needs to get in the bin.
I shouldn't need to persuade you. Are you not angry and annoyed about what's happened? Manchester United cherry picking our kind of genius behind the scenes.
No, I'm not, because I just don't see any loyalty in football at all.
Yeah, I get that.
The only one consistent element of football is the club as a whole. The rest of it doesn't really matter. And I don't sit here getting angry when players leave or getting angry when Dan Ashworth eventually does sign up to be Manchester United sporting director, because when you look at him as an individual, you knew he doesn't stay at teams long. He's not a man to sell. He'll start something up, he'll put things in place, and then he goes off and gets another challenge. And I was prepared for that to happen. I didn't think it'd happen this early on, but I'm certainly not
Yeah.
angry or disappointed or let down. I just think it just reaffirms for me that if people really believe there's loyalty in football from the top down to the squad, I think you're badly mistaken. And if
I
you are on that way,
I want
then
to jump on something you've said,
go on.
because you said he doesn't stay at clubs for very long. Our mutual friend and highly esteemed, well, the best in the business, Henry Winter. Just his tweet the other day about him stuck with me, and he said Dan Ashworth loves a project. Does he now? Because it seems like he's a bit of a half a job to me.
Look, I think when one of your good pals comes calling, your head's inevitably going to be turned a little bit more than if you didn't know the person who's knocking on your door asking you to jump ship. And then when you consider, I think the issue is that he's probably going to have a little bit more control at Manchester United. He's going to have a lot more money to spend, and that's where the attraction comes.
Yeah, but
I would love him to say, "No, I'm happy. I'm stopping at Newcastle," but it's just football. People move on. That's just life.
this is a bit of a misconception, I think, with Ashworth's role. His bread and butter is the youth development side of things. So during his time at Newcastle, he's hired around about 14 or 15 either scouts or academy directors, things like that all report to him. 14 or 15 people, that, considering where Newcastle were in their youth development, and this is the area where we will really miss him. I don't think it'll be in the first team or this, that, and the other, because as we know, our best transfer window since the takeover, Ashworth wasn't here. Trippier, Bruno, that one. But it's the youth aspect of things, the youth coaching, the academy development, talent scouting from a young age, getting that back on track. Because when teams like Chelsea, Man United, even Wolves had scouts based up in the northeast to cherry pick talent, that's so wrong. So wrong. But now we're getting back on that, because there is a massive amount of talent in the northeast, both male and female. So that's where we're going to really miss him. I mean, the youth signings we've made as well, most notably, most recently, Alfie Harrison from Man City. Let's see how he develops. Obviously, Lewis Miley is a product of the academy, Geordie boy through and through. What a breakout year for him. It's going to be a long-term thing where if they don't get the replacement right, it could really cost us. But as I say, he's not the only one that can come in and do a good job. There are plenty of slick operators out there available, but they've got to get it right, because otherwise Ashworth will prove to be a huge miss.
Yeah, he will. But just clarify to me exactly what you're putting forward on the table here, because I just clarify it a second.
I want to see sporting directors come through, stick out the project, which is why they've been employed over a consistent period of time. He was made the best paid sporting director in the Premier League by Newcastle United when they got him from Brighton. He was sold a project. He's then gone on to sell that project to players like Anthony Gordon, to players like Alfie Harrison, who's had to leave Manchester City, who the academy that the players they produce through their academy is just astonishing of late. And now he's jumped ship at the first opportunity after 18 months.
So it's the lack of loyalty of sporting directors that you're trying to put in the bin.
Yeah, half a job. He's done. He's just left half a job.
I just can't subscribe to that. I just don't think it's worth getting angry about.
He knows the inner workings of Newcastle United inside out now. He knows the owner's strategy. He knows everything, and he can take that now to a direct competitor. If I was Newcastle, which I've dreamt about pretty much every night for the past 30 years, I wouldn't care one iota about a compensation package, I would make them wait till January 2026.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think the financial compensation will help with the financial fair play. I mean, there's not a chance he's going to
Barely.
be.
How much can it really help FFFP?
Well, in this stage, every little helps. There's not a chance he's going to be going to January 2026. And the point about knowing the inner workings of Newcastle, okay, that's probably the one element that does concern me. But then Brighton could argue, well, actually, you took Dan Ashworth at a time when we were probably rivals in terms of where we were in the table, what we were trying to do. It's just football. And again,
Yeah,
I
I
just
know,
think,
and yeah, I would concede. And on that aspect, Brighton's scouting system hasn't been impacted at all by Ashworth's departure, and I don't think ours will either. But it's the long-term longevity I'm talking about, and it's the youth aspect, which is where Dan Ashworth, makes his money.
but Sam,
Gets
you're
his,
not. I mean, you're a clever man. You're a man of the world. You know how everything works. You don't genuinely sit there and get upset at the lack of loyalty from sporting directors, players, and etc. You accept that exits are going to come. Some are going to hurt more than others, but it's just part and parcel of the game, right?
yeah, I just think it's a bit. What's a good radio-friendly word I can use?
Annoying.
Yeah, I'd go stronger than that, but yeah,
What's the solution? What is the solution? Because unless you have an Ant and Deck style golden handcuffs deal like they've got with ITV, then there's always going to be a chance that directors of football, chief scouts, that they leave, CEOs. You can't tie them in for 10 years and say, you sign that, you're not going anywhere for 10 years because relationships break down, managers go, things don't work.
but that's not the case
What's
here,
the
is it?
solution you want to see?
Just a bit of, I suppose, just a bit of loyalty,
It doesn't
and the
exist.
fact that this so-called guy that supposedly loves a project just goes 18 months into, we've not even got started really, have we? Let's face it.
It doesn't exist. I mean, was this issue about loyalty? Was it a gripe before the last week, or has it just risen, came out of nowhere? Were
But
you angry before?
it's very topical, yes.
Okay, interesting. So
As
this,
was your FA Cup one.
well, yeah, I mean, very true. That's okay. Okay, point proven. I guess one thing with the FA Cup thing is it does mean the end of Gary Lineker taunting at Alan Shearer about not winning the trophy.
Yeah,
Be
that's
positive,
good.
right?
That's good. Yeah, there's only so much. I mean, he's got more than his money's worth on that. I mean, you can just listen to their podcast if you miss that kind of stuff as well. So, yeah,
Do you?
I mean, look, you say they're not doing free to air, but they are doing free to air. So
They are, but it's not in the same number, and that's the real gripe. Because I don't subscribe to TNT. I think it's far too expensive. So okay, I might get to see one or two FA Cup games, however many they choose to
I was
broadcast.
on a rolling basis, dependent on our progress in Europe. So
It's just far too
yeah.
expensive. Yeah, I think that's maybe the other talking point is that if you tot up all the subscriptions you need to watch football, even before you include now the FA Cup, it's astonishing. It must be well over £100 a month.
Yeah, if it depends what football you want to watch as well, because there are others that provide like your La Liga and stuff. Yeah, it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, and it just comes down at a time like this as well, where everything's just so expensive, down to electric and gas and everything, and car insurance. My car insurance renewal came the other day, and it's ridiculous. It's like
That can get in
treble.
the bin as well. I've just renewed actually, and it was £500 more expensive.
That's
I haven't had a
disgusting.
crash, but for whatever reason.
No, I'm a law-abiding citizen that always sticks to the speed limit, despite what Greater Manchester Constabulary think. But it's just one of them where everything's so expensive, and we're just.
Will you be
just so
subscribing to TNT Sports for the FA Cup in 2025-26?
Well, it depends on how we do in it, but then again, I'm more likely to, because my only interest really is how Newcastle do first and foremost, and there's every chance I'll just end up going to the game anyway, so probably not.
Well, I don't want to tempt fate about a future topic on this show, but I have a feeling your looking ballots might rise its ugly head in episode 3 or 4. So let's not.
Well, I'll briefly just go on to that point. I can't even I went into the ballot to discuss ballots with the club, and I couldn't even get through in that ballot either. So there you go.
Let's save that for a couple of episodes ahead. Right. Let's come to you, Sam, and kind of sum up your argument. Put forward why you think I should back you. So this is how it's going to work, ladies and gents. At the end of every show, we have to vote, and there has to be a winner. Can't be a draw. So, Sam, you've got.
So who's the deciding vote then? Because I will.
Well, this is it. I think we're just going to have to. We're just going to have to decide. And do you know what? We haven't really worked out that concept, have we? This is brilliant.
Is Lee Ryder just going to poke his head through the door and just go, no, that one?
Maybe. All right. Let's put it this way. Quick decision. If it's a tie, we open it up to the floor. We'll run a Twitter poll. We'll include two polls in it, and we'll get a decision from the people. If me and you can't be persuaded, one way or the other. But I think do you know what? I'm confident. I think I'm gonna have this one in the bag. But go on, persuade me why I should.
No, I just think it's basically Dan Ashworth, isn't it? It's not a broader point on sporting directors. It's Dan Ashworth that can get in the bin. I've tried not to be bitter in my argument and mention that he's just got small man syndrome or anything like that, because he is surprisingly.
That's getting personal.
Yeah, but I know, but he is surprisingly small. He is like I hang around with Lee Lawler. I hang around with Lee Lawler on Newcastle Fans TV, and he's small.
I just need to say, if Dan Ashworth stumbles across the set episode, and I don't know why you would do, Dan, but if you do, that is the opinion of Sam Mulliner, not the opinion of the Everything is Black and White podcast, nor the Chronicle. I'm sure you're an average size man like Deck from Ant and Deck. But go on, Sam.
I never said there was anything wrong with it.
No, I know, but people could take offence. So, I've just got to cover all tracks. But continue with your persuading.
See, they've let me loose. Maybe I'm going to go all right wing now as well. No, I'm not. It's just loyalty and not seeing out projects that you've signed up for and you've then had to sell to like £50 million signings. Like, I just find it so distasteful.
You see, but as you've just said there, it's not a general point. It's a point about Dan Ashworth, and I don't know if that automatically.
Well, it's hard to just put him in the bin, isn't it?
Well, you could have just said get Dan Ashworth in the bin. I mean, that would have worked a little bit better, and then I wouldn't be sitting here thinking, should I just disqualify your point altogether? But on the flip side, this is why you, Sam Mulliner, should back my point. This is why you should be pushing the subscription service into the bin, because the FA Cup is the most romantic competition. What? Don't I was in me flow. Go on then.
Subscription service. Your point was just about the FA Cup. Don't try and
no, but it is. It's a
strap on a subscription service for the 3 PMs on there to bolden your point. It was just about the FA Cup, which is no longer free to air, but it actually is free to air because TNT are going to make games free to air.
Free to air in the same manner, and that is the point. The FA Cup should be free to air across BBC, ITV. Throw Channel 4 in if they want a little bite of the cherry, but it should not have to come down to people paying money to watch the FA Cup. Yes, there's going to be selected games, but how are they going to do that? It's probably always going to be the top sides. We should have the ability to pick from 7, 8, 9, 10 games on an afternoon. We should be able to hit that red button and choose which game we want. We should be able to watch the games where you hear the man shouting rude expletives from the touchline, because that's how compacted in you are and the mics are there. It is an absolute travesty that most of the games are now going to be behind a paywall. Not a fan of it. The FA Cup is the most romantic cup competition in the world. And I am just devastated that we're not going to be able to watch as many games as we are currently. And that is why, Sam, you should come over to my side and push that into the bin.
Yeah, all right.
Silence is golden. Are you persuaded or not?
Yeah,
Are we
why
gonna have a
not?
tie?
Yeah, no. I'll concede on this one.
You sound really happy about it.
Why? Well, I agreed with your point, so it's not like you saying something that I like vastly disagree with. So you sound a lot more passionate about the subject than I did over mine, where I'm just a little bit bitter.
And that is exactly why I knew I was always going to have this one in the bin, because I was more passionate. I could just see.
I will win next week.
Well, we shall see. I do agree. It's been half an hour of just you being bitter towards Dan Ashworth. But you know what? To be fair, the people listening to this podcast and watching it, and if you are watching on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe. They'll probably be right on board with you. They'll probably want to put Dan Ashworth in the bin. And I actually think, Sam, had you led with that, you may have won the argument. But as it
Maybe.
was, you've come in with too much of a general point, and I have won this first episode of Get in the Bin, and Sam looks very happy about it indeed. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's going to be a weekly episode coming to you on your podcast app, YouTube. Please hit subscribe, please hit follow, and please get involved on the comments in social media as well. You can find both me and Sam on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you, and going forward as well, we want you to get in touch and tell us what overarching topics we should be picking from. So going forward, we will have certain topics in which the subtopics will come from. So if you've got any ideas, do get in touch with us, and we'll look to sort that out. But this has been the first episode of Get in the Bin with me, Andrew Musgrove, and Sam Mulliner. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, and watch out for next week's episode coming soon.